Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to our part 3 for Ottoman Empire week 4. Last part we have stopped where Bayezid's 4 sons they were fighting for 11 years about who should rule the empire. Finally, Mehmet won. He took control and reunited the empire again. Mehmet I, also known as Mehmet the Restorer, because he defeated his brothers during a time of internal conflict and became known as the second founder of Ottoman Empire. As I was saying last week, in our last video, that how in that 11 years, the Ottoman Empire was getting into small pieces and there are no stability and everything. So Mehmet the One is called the Restorer, okay, or second founder of Ottoman Empire. Of course, when Ummah is going through a civil war, we lose the momentum of prosperity. The bulk of the Mehmet the One's reign was spent reestablishing what had been lost during previous conflicts. So at this point of the history, let's recap a little bit. The Ottomans were referred as sultans. The Mamluks controlled the Holy Lands, Makkah, Medina, and Jerusalem. They were under the Mamluks' control. At the same time, the Abbasid Khalifa still existed, okay? But they did not have actual power. They just became a puppet institution with no real powers, because we know that Mamluks were originally slaves. So they never claimed the Caliphate. So they kept somebody from the Abbasids just as a puppet, so that this is the Khalifa, but actual power belonged to Mamluks. The Mamluks, being originally slaves, that did not claim the Khalifa for themselves. Anyway, to prevent another civil war after his death, Mehmet came up with a very brutal solution. Okay, he named his son Murad II as the next Khalifa. He blinded his own nephew. He would be incapable to claiming the sultanate. He allowed one of his sons to be kidnapped by Byzantines. His brothers were also handed over to Byzantines. In short, he incapacitated anyone who had the capacity to oppose Murad II. And this practice really left a dark shadow over future Ottoman sultans. It became a common practice that when a new sultan took the throne, assassins were immediately sent to kill their brothers, their uncles, or anybody potential rivals on the same day. So Murad II, let's talk about Murad II. His time was a peaceful reign. Murad II ruled for 30 years. He had a relatively peaceful time. The Janissaries, as we were talking in our first part, that how the Janissaries were very loyal to the Sultan. Murad II, he faced a little opposition from within his own family, because his father, Mehmet I, he actually killed he handed over most of the people that could have been in fighting with Murad II. So he led campaigns against Venice, Serbia, Hungary, in the Balkan area. Uniquely, he retired from the power, passing the throne to his son. The son was only 12 years old that time, but the Janissaries, they refused to serve this young boy. Then Mehmet I had to come back again in power. Finally, Murad II, he actually, let me just go back and go to the next. So he stood in for his father while he's still a teenager. He became the Khalifa at the young age of 19 to 21. He was young, he was brave, he was virtuous and knowledgeable. Okay? He had a very strong reputation. He was considered as a mujahid and did not fight against other Muslim nations. And most importantly, he raised a son, Mehmed II. So we'll talk about Mehmed II. Murad II he actually established a very good relationship with Delhi and Mamluks. So let's pause here, and I want you guys to we want to have a little bit of lessons uh, over these three parts that we are talking. So number one, monarchy and sibling rivalry. Once monarchy became the norm in the Ummah, sibling rivalry became the dominant. The Ottomans took extreme steps. They would kill, imprison brothers, sons, uncles to prevent any opposition to the Sultan. It was very messy, it was very bloody tradition. And it was justified by them by the idea that otherwise the Ummah would fall into chaos and bloodshed because they would keep fighting, there will be civil war, and it's going to harm and affect the Ummah. How will this be valid in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment? Allah knows the best. Would you kill your brother or your uncle? Or you will allow to cause the instability in the Ummah? I'm so glad that I am not in that situation. We are not in that situation, and I cannot imagine being in that situation. Now, the second reflection, I would say, small beginning can grow big. Even something small can grow into something huge. Grassroots movements with the hard work, with organization, and Allah's blessing, it can develop into empires. So nothing actually can be starts big. We cannot expect to rebuild something like Ottoman Empire in a month, in a year. Something we may not see the fruit of our efforts. Let's put it this way. Sometimes we start a very small thing, but in future generations, they might see the fruits. So it is not important always for us to see the fruits, but it is important that we start something small and consistent. Number 3, leadership and lineage. So it is not necessarily that power and leadership always comes from a specific lineage. So if you look into my slide, it says the power and authority of the Ummah does not have to come from Arabs. So what does this mean? There's a hadith, it says leaders must be from Quraysh. Now at the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Arabia was a very tribal society, and everyone looked up to the Quraysh. They would not accept anyone other than the Quraysh as their leader. But we don't live in a very tribal society at this moment, okay? And there was also a hadith, it says that obey the leader even if he is from Africa. This hadith is not meant for any racism comment or anything. It meant that even he's from a far place, if he's qualified, if he has all the qualities to be a leader, then obey him. We must obey. So how do we reconcile this both hadith? Because one hadith, it says the leadership must be from Quraysh. Another hadith, it's saying obey the leader if he is the right one, even he's from Africa. So to reconcile this both hadith, I go with the opinion from the scholars that it was a requirement of that specific time when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam he left, that was the tribal society in the Arab Peninsula, and they would not accept anybody else other than Quraysh as their leader. But at this point, we don't need to have this and this requirement. That was for a specific time. And then the last reflection I want to discuss, whenever Muslims fight among themselves, we lose. This is a lesson that we keep repeating over and over itself. All around us, Muslims are fighting with each other. And without unity, I don't know how we will regain our strength and power. Now, let's talk about Mehmed II, the conqueror. Okay, perhaps the most important Muslim conqueror after the Sahaba, Mehmed II or Mehmed II. He caused a massive shift in our global power dynamics. Imagine a group that was a nomadic 100 years ago, now conquerors of the capital of Roman Empire. You know, it felt like a miracle when Mongols and Crusaders were killing the Muslims left and right. It felt like an end of the world for many of the Muslims. Just like now, based on the situation the Muslims are going through, it feels like it's an end of the world. Just as Muslims become powerful over 200 years from that situation, that time, we might also be part of another rise after 2 years. Allah knows the best. Who knows? Now let's talk about a little bit Mehmet's the second's character and vision. So he became Sultan at the age of 21 or 19, very young age. He was known for his bravery, his virtue, his knowledge, his courage, and his connection to the scholars and the Sufi teachers. He was memorizing the Hadith, and he had a very deep interest in Islamic knowledge. For 600 years, since the time of Muawiyah, many Muslim leaders tried to conquer Constantinople, but none succeeded. And Mehmed II, he was determined. He kept his eye on the Constantinople. Constantinople was the capital of Roman Empire and considered impenetrable, like no one can penetrate. Prophet Muhammad prophesied that the righteous leader with a righteous army would conquer it. So since then, actually since time of Muawiyah, they have been trying, and Ottomans had already conquered all the lands around the city. It was surrounded. Okay, so Constantinople, if we go back, think about that map that I showed you guys, a small little city in the middle, and all the lands around are, let me go back here. There you go. So if we look into here, it's a very small little country, city actually, no, I'm skip saying it country, I'm sorry. So this is, if you look at the purple area, it's there's a marker here, it says Istanbul, so that was Constantinople. So this is Black Sea, the blue, and then also this is part of Mediterranean Sea. There is no connection, the land connection here. Even on the east side, there is no land connection. Only the left side, the western, south, and northern west is the area where, if you see the yellow zone, this is the land connection. Now, what was the strategy that Mehmed II he tried? Okay, he became known as a gunpowder ruler. He developed massive cannons to break through the city's wall. One of the most heaviest. Let me just go back to our slides here. Okay, right. So he focused his attention as Constantinople eliminate the Byzantine presence in the Asia Minor. So this is a picture I found from him about him from the internet. Okay, so he hired a Hungarian engineer. His name was Urban. He specialized in building cannon in the world. The cannon was so big a man could crawl inside. It took 90 oxen and 400 men to move it to a battlefield. And Mehmed II's army was the best armed and most technologically advanced army at that time. After months of planning, he planned very well. Mehmed did something that was never been done. He carried the ships over land in the middle of the night and placed them directly into city's port, because all the all other three sides, there were navy guards, there were guards. Okay, so no one could come through the water from other side. What Mehmet did, it's a very unheard of and amazing tactic to win the battle. He had the ships moved over land in the night and put them into the ports. So imagine in the morning, they woke up, they see all the Ottomans' ships are in their ports. They don't know how these ships came through their guards, through those channels of water channels. So the ships did not have to come through the navy guards of Constantinople. And he also ordered to build a fort on the hills for a strategic view of the city. Eventually, the city fell. The Constantinople became a Muslim land, later renamed Istanbul. So he conquered the city. That was the fulfillment of the prophecy. During the time of prophethood, Prophet Muhammad, when he said that one time Muslim will conquer the Roman Empire, the disbelievers, they mocked. They were laughing. They were mocking at Prophet Muhammad. But after many years, this prophecy was fulfilled. Since then, it became the capital of Ottoman Empire. Murad II, he moved the capital from Basra to Constantinople. So if you look at the map, we see that all the land conquered Constantinople was already under Muslim control, so there was no help to the Byzantines. All right, so this would be end of for today. We will continue next week, inshallah. All these three parts were actually in a 1 week. Jazakallah khair for your attention and your time. May Allah reward all of us. Assalamu alaikum.